And we'll pick up on the 7th of June, and from where we left off last night, the British and Canadians have established a firm beachhead, and as more and more troops continue to flow in as reinforcements. Some gains are made, not as far as taking Caen, but the threat of being driven back into the sea has been eliminated at this point. Now, in the liberation of Northwest Europe, it tells us that the Allied air forces had one of their most active days in the campaign, dispatching a total of nearly 12,000 sorties. That coming straight off a day where they had put up 14,000. Now, 2nd Tactical Air Force, of which this wing is a part, had its busiest day in all its history, putting up about 2,400 sorties, providing assault area cover and escort, that's this wing's task, reconnaissance of all types, and tactical support to the assault forces. So in addition to our wing providing low cover, we have reconnaissance flights out, and Typhoons going out to engage ground forces and try to isolate the battlefield, keep further German reinforcements from being able to reach the area. So we'll move from here into the squadron descriptions. We have in the 441 Squadron an update on Flight Sergeant Brochu, was picked up in the Channel and admitted to Royal South Hampshire Hospital, Southampton, suffering from exposure but otherwise uninjured. 4 times during the day, this squadron provided low cover over the eastern assault area. On one occasion, 4 Me-109s were sighted but engaged by 443 Squadron. Now, 442 writes, the first patrol of the beach was airborne at 0630, returning at 0820. Still no enemy air activity, weather not as good as yesterday, cooler and cloudy, light precipitation early in the morning. Squadron Leader Russell on the 5th consecutive sortie led 144 Wing. Wing Commander Johnson led the squadron at 11:25 for the usual patrol over the French coast. Enemy aircraft still scarce. On the way back, Flight Officer Godwin ran out of gas and bailed out in the Channel from 4,000 feet. Flight Officer Ropiard followed him down and saw his dinghy and directed a walrus and destroyer to him for a pickup. A Polish destroyer was nearby and Goody was seen to clamber up the side. The others returned at 13:30. The 3rd patrol to the same area was led by the OC at 15:40. Before setting out, the boys enjoyed some tomatoes, compliments of the OC. Weather cloudy, the wing destroyed 1 enemy aircraft on this patrol. Flight Lieutenant Russell, brother of the OC, received half credit. Squadron Leader Russell was over the French coast with the 4th patrol at about 2015 when the squadron was surprised to hear over the RT Flight Officer Godwin announced that he was on the beachhead, I suppose dropped off after being picked up. Squadron Leader Hull with the 443 Squadron returned with a leg wounded. Henderson of the same squadron came down in the battle area. Total flying hours 93. And now 443. Weather continuing cloudy and cool. Heavy cloud at 5,000, lighter at 1 to 3,000 feet. 4 low-cover patrols were carried out over the beachhead during the day. Flight Lieutenant McLennan was forced to crash land just inside the beach in territory which is not under complete control of the British forces. We'll have a look at this in more detail here in a bit. He landed safely and ran towards farm buildings, but no further particulars are known. On the 3rd patrol, 1 Me-109 was destroyed, being shared by Flight Lieutenant Russell and Flight Officer Ockenden. Another pilot has been posted to our squadron to replace Flight Lieutenant McLennan, being Flight Officer Wilson, who is now promoted to acting Flight Lieutenant rank. Flight Lieutenant Wilson has come from the 441 Squadron. I thought I recognized the name. And another new Spitfire was flown into Wing Reserve today, it being MK300. Flight Officer Henderson forced to crash land on the Allied bridgehead in France during this evening's patrol. He was last seen after he had climbed out safely, attempting to get a ride to the beachhead. Squadron Leader Hall received a slight leg injury when a stray Allied bullet penetrated the fuselage under his seat during the evening's patrol. So as you can see, the 6th of June gets all the attention, and rightly so, but the 7th and onward, establishing the beachhead and starting to move in are, in a way, more eventful. We're going to have a lot to look at here. So we'll move on to the individual missions. The first mission, 0625 to 0825, low cover over the eastern assault area. 441 Squadron is not going to give any details, so I'm just going to skip them and work off the other 2 squadrons' accounts. So we have from the 442 Squadron, MET and AFEs. Those are transports and tanks moving south towards Caen. No large enemy convoys seen. No enemy aircraft opposition. Flak moderate, inaccurate from Caen. Clouds 9/10 at 2 to 6,000 feet. Visibility good. So these vehicles sighted either 3rd Infantry Division from the British moving in on Caen or 21st Panzer Division retreating towards Caen. And the patrol zone, as I have it displayed here on the map, is a little different from what I showed yesterday. This, after further research, is the, no kidding, patrol zone. It's 15 miles out into the sea, 5 miles inland. So I'm going to go back and revise the 6 to reflect this. I was just misreading the description that was given by the 443 for what the area was yesterday. And 443 for this mission, weather cloudy and cool, 9/10 at 2 to 6,000 feet, visibility good. Aircraft patrolled British section of the beachhead. Heavy cloud forced AC to patrol at very low level. No enemy opposition or interference. Flight Officer Stephen returned early due to radio trouble. No large enemy convoys seen. Moderate, inaccurate, heavy flak encounter, presumably in the Con area, as most of the flak, I think all the flak on this mission, is reported coming from the Con area, and that does make sense in light of the German position. And as it said, very few large convoys seen on the road, and I'll come in here and I'll bring up the imagery that's available for the 7th, which is sparse, I'm sure, owing to the weather and just for the need to focus on other locations further inland at this point. But in reviewing this and reviewing imagery just from this entire period, it's very rare to spot any vehicles at all moving on the roads. And I'll come in here to just a quick example of the type of images that were captured on this day. And you can see the road right here. You can see one vehicle moving, and that's really about all that you ever see. So movements would have been at night, and everything was sort of kept under cover. I bet if I look really, really closely at areas like this with trees, that you would be able to spot vehicles and equipment undercover. And coming back to why they were taking recon photos in the first place, it obviously wasn't to spot mobile units because of the time and effort it would take to get these back to England and be processed, analyzed, and that information forwarded. It was to look for things like this, defensive positions. And you can see the dug-in areas up here in this grove of trees, trenches. This is a pretty heavily fortified location right here, and that's what the reconnaissance folks were looking at, and that's getting a little bit beyond the scope of what I really want to look at here, but I thought that was interesting as I was looking for specifically some trucks up here. But yeah, the weather kept reconnaissance from this day from shedding much light on anything of that nature that could be seen. So this first mission down at 0820, back up at 1130, so 442. No enemy reaction. Flight Officer Godwin bailed out 15 miles north of the beachhead due to petrol shortage. Picked up immediately by naval craft. No enemy aircraft opposition. Flak moderate, small, from Con. Cloud 7/10, 1 to 5,000 feet, so clearing up some over the beachhead. Well, like it says there, clearing rapidly, visibility good. And from 443, for this mission, 8/10 cloud scattered at 2 to 3,000, aircraft on patrol at 1,500 feet along the eastern flank of the British beachhead. Low cover provided 15 miles out to sea and 5 miles inland. That's a lot more clear than the description from yesterday, and this does match the descriptions in all places now that I've looked at it closer for the patrols on the 6th and the 7th. Flight Lieutenant McLennan forced to crash just inside the shore on the beachhead, his engine having seized due to a glycol leak, and we'll have a closer look at that site here in a second. Unfortunately, he landed in an area not at present controlled by our forces, and no information received regarding his welfare or position. Flight Officer Pitch, flying number 2 to McLennan, reported he circled the field at 100 feet but was forced to leave after a few minutes as the enemy's guns were making it hot for him. The position was 2 miles west of Cabourg, beside the shore. The aircraft was considerably damaged by striking prepared obstacles in the field, but McLennan was seen to climb from the cockpit and run west towards farm buildings. Now I have the crash site down here. It didn't call out any grid coordinates for me, but I have it positioned exactly 2 miles to the west of Cabourg, just like it was called out. Now, it was described as a field by a shore, and this isn't the highest resolution imagery that there is, but it's what I could easily get into Google Earth, and we have some prepared obstacles down here. So I have looked very, very closely at this particular field, trying to spot anything. I think the photos that I'm working with here were taken a little bit too high to really be able to pick up anything other than a few pixels. So on the higher resolution stuff, I've been looking for, kind of like we saw with the gliders yesterday, just a skid in a field with maybe a few pixels to show an aircraft. And I think of all the things so far that I would have a legitimate chance of finding an exact location, this is it, but no luck so far, and it's sort of compounded by the fact that these are from the 15th, a week later, so any signs on the terrain might have been obscured But that's the exact location right there, and if I do turn anything up on that, I will report back. Now, the third of the day, 442, writes, 4 109 sighted, 1 destroyed by pilots of other squadrons in the wing, and that'd be the 443 squadron. No clouds over beachhead, hazy clouds, 7/10 at 6 to 7,000 feet inland. And 443 gives us aircraft on patrol of beachhead area, heavy cloud conditions prevailing, no activity reported until squadron ready to leave. B Flight reported 4 ME-109s east of Caen, bounced over Caen, 1 destroyed by Flight Lieutenant Russell, shared with Flight Officer Ockenden. A second was damaged by Flight Lieutenant Prest, who was unable to join effective battle because only 1 cannon would fire. Enemy aircraft seen to give off smoke but able to get away south into France. So this is the first encounter with enemy aircraft for the wing so far. And going back to the RCAF overseas, it gives much the same account, but it also says that the other Canadian Spitfire wing that were sort of rotating on and off had all the luck and claimed 12 destroyed, 1 probably destroyed, and 4 damaged on this day. So the timing just didn't work out at all for the wing that we're following here. Now the final mission is a 1950 takeoff, no enemy reaction. 1 pilot from another squadron in the wing crash landed at Tango 8582, and I have that plotted out right there. Another pilot in the same squadron wounded by flak, Victor 0978, which was meager, light, accurate, also flak intense, heavy accurate from North Caen. Very hazy, no cloud over the beachhead, cloud 7/10 at 6 to 7,000 feet inland, visibility 7 to 12 miles. And 443 gives us patrol the British beach, no enemy aircraft encountered, heavy, accurate flak whenever approaching Caen. Flight Officer Henderson crash-landed inside the coast on the British beachhead due to engine failure when he switched from overload tank to main tank, and that's the one that we already documented right here. The aircraft was seen to break up badly, but he was able to climb out and move away from the aircraft. Squadron Leader Hull received a 303 bullet in the calf of one leg when a stray shot penetrated the fuselage under the cockpit. 2 other bullets hit the wing, and this again is the one that we already noted as wounded by flak at this precise location up here. It seems they were fired by our own guns. He was treated immediately upon landing and fit again by nightfall. So as it said, probably some friendly fire right there from British troops firing on the Spitfires, and that's by no means the only case of that happening, and the squadrons flying low cover would have had a bad time of it with cases like this documented throughout all the air forces, and friendly fire ground to air was by no means the only type. Even Spitfires and Typhoons giving ground support were known to simply pick the wrong targets, especially in cases like you can see right here where enemy units are closely engaged, and I could see how that could be very, very hard to keep straight. And I guess just to close out the day, the squadron accounts don't mention it, but Johnny Johnson in his book describes on the last flight of the day a controller asking him to send a section of Spitfires a few miles inland to ascertain whether or not the enemy was bringing up substantial ground reinforcements. And he writes, I took the Spitfires on the reconnaissance mission, low cloud, which here and there rolled down almost to the treetops, presented accurate observation. We were only a mile or 2 from the coast when I saw some activity in a cornfield below. 6 or 8 British tanks were maneuvering for an attack against a similar number of Tiger tanks, which crouched squat and sinister on the edge of a small orchard. Fascinated, we watched the drama below, and I was immediately struck by the great contrast between the speed and pattern of our intricate air battles and this cumbersome, unwieldy, but equally deadly affair on the ground. The British continued to receive the worst of the exchange, and although our cannons would have little effect against the tough armor of the Tigers, I maneuvered my formation for a flank attack against the enemy targets. Our support was unnecessary, however, since 4 Typhoons appeared on the scene and, without further ado, proceeded to launch a rocket attack against the Tigers. The enemy tanks were soon hidden from our view by the debris thrown into the air from the impact of the rockets. And with that, the rest of the Wing's aircraft returned to base for the last time of the night, and we move on into the 8th.